This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Happy Friday, folks. Welcome in. It is Jonathan Von Tobel with you for the next 2 hours as we get you set for a wild weekend, both of football, mixed martial arts, hoops, and more. Really looking forward to what we have for the program today. And we have a loaded program at that. So let's not waste any more time and get right into what we're going to get into here on this Friday.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
Day starts off with a great guest list. Mike Palm joins us in his usual time slot coming up in about 15 minutes. Get his thoughts on the college football weekend that will be, and also what could be. We talked to him last week. We said, this might be the best morning slate or best slate in the NFL. This week could actually live up to that as well. Will Hill with his usual guest appearance as we get some handicapping for football. And we're going to go out, well, not literally to Madison Square Garden, but Doug Vasquez will be with us at Doug Does Fights, senior producer at SI Now, as we will discuss UFC 322. Really looking forward to the card this weekend. Jack Della Maddalena taking on Islam Makhachev. Makhachev, of course, taking a step into the welterweight class, and Valentina Shevchenko and Weili Zhang. The top two bouts should be great, and it's a loaded card. So looking forward to breaking it down with Doug. And, of course, Zach Cohen. It is a Friday. That means NBA Cup action. Zach will be with us to give us his best bets for the association, a little college football as well, if we have time. Also on the program today, with this Friday, we do our usual market power ratings. And how about this? We have a team falling even further. The New York Jets slipping pretty far down the market power ratings ladder, and some really interesting matchups and a gap that I can't really believe. We'll discuss who those teams are and how we can handle some of them, as we'll usually do on this Friday. And last but not least, because this is where we begin our program today, a little bit of football, and of course, a little bit of a beatdown last night. New England Patriots take on the New York Jets on Thursday Night Football, get the win over New York that many expected, 27-14. Not really a matchup worth writing home about. New England closes as a 12.5-point favorite. They cover that spread. Game goes under the closing total. So there's a lot of places I think you can go. There's really, I don't think any point in analyzing the game and looking back at what the Jets could have done here. We'll talk about the Jets momentarily. But where I wanted to start with this is Drake May. He continues his strong play, and his odds for MVP continue to rise. Last night, 25 of 34 on 37 dropbacks, 281 yards, 8.3 yards per attempt, single touchdown. He turned over the play on a ball thrown deep, ran the ball just 4 times for 2 yards, and he is, again, 235, plus 235 to win MVP. Let's hear from the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots, as that fandom last night was actually pretty wild considering the opponent and the fact that we all expected a pretty big win for New England.
Yeah, I think just a quick turnaround. The goal of these Thursday night is come out with a win, and that's what happened. Things we look back on, didn't have as much time to prepare for. Some things that I could, look back at myself and, wish I had plays back. But, at the end of the day, just proud of these guys for the effort, the win, and that's the best thing about, Thursday night. You get a weekend to catch up on some rest and some heal up. But I thought his fans were awesome. I think it was pretty sweet for the primetime game here for my first one at home. Pretty sweet. And then, just glad we won.
Chance of MVP all throughout the arena for one Drake May. So coming out of this, I think it's kind of important, and I think this should be the question. Should he actually be the favorite? We've talked about this a lot. You see the performance again yesterday, and by the way, a strong day from Henderson as well. You look at his overall profile for the season, Drake May. And these are his placement, because I'm going to give you where he ranks among qualified quarterbacks. Take it with a small grain of salt, as there are guys that have yet to play this week. So he'll slip a little bit from where he's at, but still across the board, and a lot of these different metrics we're going to talk about, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, statistically, there's no question about it. 71.9% completion is second best among qualified quarterbacks. The 2,836 yards currently leads all quarterbacks right now. That's through the air, of course. 8.9 yards per attempt, second best in the National Football League. The 20 touchdown passes tied for second most, and his expected points added and completion percentage over expected composite, that is the second best among quarterbacks so far in this NFL season. It's been a very strong year for Drake May. And the physical tools are there. A lot of great throws. I thought, and this is not to take away, a lot of wide open guys downfield where you're putting it exactly where it needs to be. I thought he was actually brilliant in a lot of these plays where he was avoiding pressure, extending plays, and yet not using his legs instead to gain yards on the ground, but through the air, of course, finding guys when plays are broken. It was great. But I do wonder, and I am curious, as we watch the Patriots beat up on another bad team, and you get credit for what your schedule is, how much voters do consider the Patriots' strength of schedule in that do they give May the benefit of the doubt because he's been performing well against these bad opponents, or will they look elsewhere for a quarterback like a Matthew Stafford, like a Sam Darnold, because their list of opponents, as well as achieving potentially a 1 seed, which we'll talk about for the New England Patriots, there's a little bit more in terms of what they've had to do. For those who aren't familiar with it on the top of their head, average opponent rank in defensive efficiency for the New England Patriots, 18.6 out of 32 teams. We'll call them elite defenses faced, where you rank 10th or higher, the Cleveland Browns, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in terms of efficiency. Bottom 10 defenses faced. There's been 3 of them. Miami 29th, Tennessee 28th, Carolina 23rd. And then those mid-tier teams, we're talking 15th to 22nd, they have faced 5 of those opponents. So I am very curious. Look, May across the board has been very good. There's really no poking holes in his game. He's been fantastic, and as we already laid out, statistically, there really is no argument. If you hold it up with the level of opponent they faced, I think that's where you start to get in the minutia of, will I vote for him as most valuable player over a guy like a Sam Darnold, like a Matthew Stafford, like a Patrick Mahomes? Should he be able to leap his way up the standings and compete for a 1 seed? But regardless, let's hear from Vrabel, because last night it was a strong performance for his team, but was very impressed with May overall.
I would say his performance in general has been, what we expect. And, we have high expectations for Drake. He has high expectations for himself. He'll continue to improve. I know that he'll stay humble through this all. And, again, and as far as the performance tonight, I thought it was, again, in first view, pretty good. It was good enough to win. I mean, took care of the football. We just have to, continue to focus on the little things, operation, unforced errors throughout the offense. The only thing that really stops us is us, offensively. So continue to do that. Let them enjoy a win on a short week. And like I told them, I'm excited, but we're 9-2. I'm excited that I don't have to see them till Monday.
Yeah, 9-2 with some extra days off. They do go to Cincinnati next time out. But as we zoom out from Drake May to the team as a whole, that New England Patriots team right now is favored to win the 1 seed in the AFC. They're plus 160 to do so, just ahead of the Indianapolis Colts at plus 230. Broncos at plus 450, those two being 2 lost teams right behind. Colts, of course, have the head-to-head tiebreaker for those who don't remember over Denver. You get to the Buffalo Bills at plus 850, the Chiefs at 11-1, the Chargers at 16-1. The odds go on, but I feel like this is a pretty good line of demarcation to kind of throw out there as the teams that could realistically win this. And look, the New England Patriots, we should probably point out here, by far in the driver's seat for this. Not only because they have, the odds will adjust because they have the game advantage they have played. Look at where they're at in terms of remaining strength of schedule. They have the second easiest schedule left in the National Football League. The rest of their contemporaries there to compete for the 1 seed. Colts have the second hardest schedule in the NFL. Again, plus 230. We've covered this. Colts might be slipping from the standings. Might also extend out to Coach of the Year odds, which we can add to momentarily. The easiest strength of schedule among the other teams competing with New England for the number 1 seed is the Denver Broncos. They're 17th in the National Football League. So this New England Patriots team has everything in front of them to win the 1 seed in the AFC. Actually seems somewhat tempting at plus 160 considering what all of these other opponents have in front of them. And by the way, they're all going to play each other. Denver still has to play Kansas City twice. We do have one more matchup between New England and Buffalo. Obviously, there's 3 AFC West teams here, so they're all going to play one another too. So this is going to be a race that is the Patriots to lose. But it got me thinking last night. The success overall for New England and potentially a 1 seed, we don't really talk about it a lot. At least on this program, we haven't. But as you look at this schedule and their ability to potentially win this 1 seed, how much do we buy into New England in the grand scheme of the AFC? Because we've talked a lot about them as the 1 seed. We talked a lot about Drake May as an MVP. But when we've talked about winning the AFC, winning the Super Bowl, I've included them in the conversation of, hey, throw them all in a hat. I've used the analogy, pull one out. Would you be surprised if this team won the AFC? They're in those group of teams because all of them are pretty close to one another. But there are some oddities for New England when you really look at their profile overall. For example, Patriots, they're 8th in expected points added per play on offense. It's very good, but they're 15th in success rate. If you look at success rate on early downs, they're 22nd in the National Football League, but 7th in third down. That would tell you that was somewhat unsustainable, a team that is somewhat reliant on generating some bigger and explosive plays, a team that down to down, especially early, hasn't really been able to be as efficient and as consistent. And then a similar, more average profile defensively, 12th in expected points added per play, solid, not great, but solid, but 19th in success rate at about 45%. I think you can trust that they're going to take care of the schedule in front of them, potentially win the 1 seed in the AFC. But in terms of these teams, if we're really stacking them out in the AFC of who can realistically win this does seem to be almost Mike Vrabel-esque. You can go back to quite a few Titans teams and see that they really exceeded expectations, maybe due to a schedule, whatever it was. But when you really looked under the hood for some of those Titans teams, and it's a credit to Vrabel in terms of the coaching job that he's done, but you understand that it's a little bit more of a flawed club and that there's probably 1, 2, maybe even 3 teams in the, hey, who are you going to pick to win this conference conversation than you would with Vrabel's squad overall. But this is exactly what he does. And again, I'll point out, not only in terms of competing for the 1 seed, but directly ahead of Shane Steichen in the Indianapolis Colts, a guy he's competing for Coach of the Year. This might be the stretch now where he maybe, even though it's a short price, you buy on some Vrabel because there is a chance that Steichen, with that really hard schedule, they start to slip, they start to eat a couple of losses, and all of a sudden, don't think they're slipping out of the playoff picture, but probably not competing for a 1 seed in the AFC. Let's get Mike Palm's thoughts on that, though, when he joins us next. We'd love to see what he thinks about New England in the grand scheme of things. So the VP of Ops for the D, Golden Gate, and Circa will join us on the other side. Don't go anywhere, man. We got a loaded show. Very much looking forward to the second hour. We get to the UFC and the NBA card and more. So stick around and watch us, vsin.com, and wherever you get your podcast, make sure you down, like, and subscribe to Money Moves. We won't mention the other one.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Very lucky, as usual, to have Mike Palm in studio here, VP of Ops for the D, Golden Gate, and Circa at his usual time. Mike, thank you very much. We're getting to winter weather out here. How you a winter guy? How you feeling? Because you have Midwest ties.
Yeah, I like 4 seasons.
Yeah.
We have 4 seasons. 2 of them are a month long, and one is 8 months long, and one is 2 months long. It was nice this morning. Had a little rain.
Yep.
Clears the air. I was out in my backyard doing a few radio interviews. Felt beautiful.
I feel very old the last couple of days because I have, in the last few days, purchased a newspaper because I was very curious about the cover story. Yes. By the way, newspaper prices. Holy smokes, $3 for the RJ? I don't know about that.
Well, Adam Hill's making the big money.
That's very true. It all goes to him. The second was I've been into weather lately because there's some storm coming through and that we're going to have like 5 days of rain potentially in Las Vegas. So I can feel my age really coming on strong.
Tomorrow's going to be all rain, it looks like. I turned, I think it was like the 1st of October or sometime in there, I turned my AC off. I said, we're not going to need the AC. I haven't turned the AC on or the heat on at all. So I've been living 6 weeks, which is nice because you can see your electric bill go from $400 to $120. It's a nice save. But just having the windows open and having the fans on sometimes is really nice.
It's been great. I'm a big winter guy. I would assume Mike Vrabel is becoming a winter guy because it sounds like he's going to have a home game in New England coming up here in the postseason. So let's talk about this team because this is where we opened up. And, not the game itself. We can talk about the Jets, whatever it is. Patriots are the story, and I think there's a two-pronged story here. The first is we started kind of zoomed in. Drake May. You think is he the rightful MVP favorite? Because I have made the case that I think he is the favorite due to liability. There were some very long odds available on him at the beginning of the year. And I think when I see him at like plus 235 to win that award, he should be up there. But I think like Stafford should be favored to win that thing over him.
Very interesting, isn't it, with Matt Stafford? And we talked for years about what a terrible contract. The Rams, they mortgaged their future. They threw it all away for one.
Trade the first-round pick to go get him, too. Right?
Legitimately, they were probably the second best team in the NFC last year.
Yep.
And they're competing for a 1 seed again this year. And a great game coming up against Seattle, who can't seem to lose on the road. They're a terrific road team. But it's such a quarterback bias award. I mean, I looked at Jonathan Taylor at 55-1 for like 2 weeks. I mean, the guy's going to score 30-plus touchdowns on that team. Now, could they get a 1 or 2 seed? It's always a quarterback on a 1 or 2 seed. New England most likely is going to be the 1 seed.
Yep.
And it's Drake May. Can the Rams be? The Rams have a lot more competition. They need to win this game against Seattle. Philly and Detroit are going to compete against each other. But New England's got a path here. if you assume they lose to Buffalo, and that's a home game, and Baltimore, they're still 13-4.
Yeah.
Right? They're still. Do you think the Broncos are going to be 14-3? I mean, I don't think so. So I think they should be the favorites to get the 1 seed. So based on that criteria, a quarterback from a 1 or a 2 seed, I do think he deserves to be, because his path to be the 1 seed is much easier than Matt Stafford's.
Yep. And to the point of being the 1 seed as well, 3 AFC West teams are kind of in contention for it. It's the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Chiefs, not in that order. They're all going to play each other. I mean, the Broncos have to play the Chiefs twice. So it does seem very likely that's going to be the case. You mentioned the schedule for our audience. At Cincinnati, home versus the Giants, home versus Buffalo, at Baltimore, at the Jets, and then home versus Miami. There's a bye week mixed in there after the game against the New York Giants. So they seem very much poised to be the top seed. So zooming out, are they a legitimate contender in the AFC?
Everybody's got warts to me. Like, right, Baltimore still hasn't played a good game yet. This whole year, I don't think they've really played a good game yet. They played well enough to cover that number in Minnesota. Minnesota made so many mistakes, and McCarthy was so inconsistent on the drives. Buffalo, I was just really, I'm still feeling the disappointment of what to me was like a no-show and a sloppy game in Miami, and it killed a lot of people in Survivor and Grandissimo. So I don't know what to make of Buffalo. Is anybody in the West good enough? They're all like sort of at the same level. I don't know. Indy's still in this mix too. I mean, their offense is still that good.
Yep.
But can they go on the road and play in cold weather and on a not artificial turf? Right.
Yeah.
That's a difference for them. So I still think they're viable. I just think it's a really wide open. I think both the conferences are wide open though. I think you could probably pick 4 teams from both conferences if you really wanted to cover yourself in the NFL right now.
So my thought was, in the AFC, I wouldn't be surprised if any one of 6 teams won it. In the NFC, I personally have it whittled down to like 3.5, maybe 4.
Philadelphia.
Yep, Philadelphia.
Detroit.
Detroit, Philadelphia, the Rams, and the Seahawks.
Okay, 4th. So that's what I think.
Like, yeah,
the
you're
same
right
4 I have.
But I think so. I
don't have Denver.
No.
And I don't have the Chargers.
No.
In my mix in the AFC.
I can see that. I think they're all so similar to one another, kind of like you're talking about. I wouldn't be really shocked if any one of them won it. But I'll say this, and I'm curious. I talked about this with Mitch on our pod to the Futures. I think the gap between the NFC and the AFC is somewhat significant. Like any of those teams in that Super Bowl, if we're assuming the powers
would be
that
a
we're talking
favorite.
about.
Any of those 4 teams would be favored over the teams coming out of the AFC.
Outside of Mahomes, because you have to make them, I think, a small favorite.
But everybody loves Baltimore. This Baltimore team was one of the greatest teams of all time ever assembled.
I mean, if they rip off all these wins,
by far the number 1 pick in our guide to win it all. Right? I mean, so. They just haven't put it together. I do like the fact that they're running Derrick Henry. I mean, they totally got away from running Derrick Henry in the first part of the year. It was totally ludicrous. I want to change the subject because you're an analytics guy and a huge baseball fan. I've been surprised by some of the postseason results that I don't disagree with. I don't agree with if I was a voter. I think John Schneider should have won AL Manager of the Year. Their over-under was 77.5 or 78 wins.
Yep.
I do believe Judge should have won. And I said as soon as Raleigh became favored, he's only ahead of him in one category. He led every other category, Judge, in the American League. But the margin that Baldwin beat Horton is ludicrous to me. Is this now just about WAR? Is it a bunch of lazy writers who are now just going to say, well, we're just going to look at the WAR and vote on that? I always criticize Heisman voters. They don't watch games. They just look at highlights. But the baseball writers now, this WAR thing, how do you explain? I mean, Baldwin put up all his numbers in the first half of the year on a non-competitive team, and I know that it's not the team's performance, but Horton was the ace of that staff that got this team to the playoffs, and Managa was hurt down the stretch. He wasn't effective. Horton led this whole team to get them into the playoffs and, eventually a wild card win, but to get the 4th seed in the National League.
Sure.
I can't believe that. And it's not sour grapes, although I would have made a nice amount of money. I bet Horton 3 different times. And then when I saw the margin, and then you go, oh, well, the WAR is 3-1 to 2-2.
I will say, I do think I get the sense that some voters do make up their minds pretty early. I'll go back to Paul Skeens winning NL Rookie of the Year. There was a lot of thought that maybe Jackson Merrill was going to push him for that. And then you get the votes, and I think Merrill ended up getting 7 first-place votes in totality. I do think a lot of these voters look at that and that's my guy. And I think they do it in every sport, by the way. There's a lot of people that will make up their awards, or excuse me, not make them up, make up their minds on awards and who they're going to vote for.
Well, Horton still, he was 11-4. He made 22 starts. Baldwin played in 124 games. I mean, the percentage is the same, the amount of time they played. And he had an ERA 2.7. Yeah. I mean, none of his deeper analytics numbers were bad.
I'm curious who put him third on their ballot.
Well, wait a minute. There was one guy who didn't have him on the ballot at all. He only got 29 out of 30 votes, so he was not in somebody's top 5. Another Mark Jackson. He forgot about the Joker moment. I have no NHL plays. I do want to go back to our loser I gave out last Friday. And I should have done a little more research into this. The Islanders, I love the scheduling spot, but the Islanders were playing the Rangers on Saturday night. And so they put Riddick in goal, and he was terrible against the Wild. And, they were saving and played well and dominated the Rangers. So, I mean, I that's my own fault for that play. I don't have any hockey plays. I like USC laying 15.5 in college basketball today.
Okay, yeah.
And then how about a 3-team money line parlay in college football? This pays plus 196. You ready?
Okay, yep.
Georgia over Texas.
Money line, you said, right?
Money line.
Okay.
Alabama over Oklahoma, and USC over Iowa.
Okay.
Here's a 3-team money. They're all 6.5 point favorites.
And then you said USC hoops as well.
I haven't bought into this. Arch has made these great strides. Now, this is not a great Georgia defense by far, but I think Gunnar Stockton is sneakily very good because he can beat you with his legs, and he's got weapons to throw to. I think Mateer has been considerably worse since he's come back off the injury. I think Alabama, I would lay the points in that game with Al. And then one time in my life has Iowa gone to Southern California and beat a Pac-12 school, and that was in a Holiday Bowl a few years ago where they beat Keaton Slovis and USC. Every other time they go out there, even UCLA last year, every Rose Bowl they get blown out. They have to be emotionally down. We were so close against Oregon. If they make the 2, it's a totally different game. But you're up 1, they're just going to go kick a field goal. Everything will go wrong for Iowa, and cheating Lincoln Riley will win this game.
They just play differently at home too. For whatever it is, it seems very simple, but these Big Ten road games have not treated them well.
The travel's been awful. Indiana going to Oregon's the only team that's gone west. Illinois was awful at Washington. It's just it's kind of vice versa too when they come to the Midwest. But so there's a 3-teamer for you.
All right, so 3-team moneyline parlay: Georgia, Alabama, USC, and you like USC hoops tonight minus 15.5.
Okay. Yeah, I think that line's going to move. I think that closes 16.5 or 17.
Yeah, I've been starting to watch a little bit more now that the season started. I will tell you, as somebody who likes the NBA, it is very different watching these guys early on when they're all out of it. Mike, appreciate it.
Are the Clippers going to miss the playoffs for the first time in 13 years?
We're going to talk about that. They've failed to cover 9 straight. They've been awful, man. Mike, thank you very much. Appreciate it as always. All right, Mike Palm again, VP Ops here at D, Golden Gate and Circa. Will Hill is going to join us next.
Watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Big thanks to Mike Palm. Joined us a little bit earlier. Make sure you check out, if you missed out any part of the show, Money Moves, wherever you get your podcast. Like, rate, review, subscribe would be greatly appreciated. For those who did miss out with Mike, you have a 3-team moneyline parlay that he left with us: Georgia, Alabama, USC, all in college football. And then in basketball, likes USC as well, laying the points in college hoops. Let's head out to the phone lines, the progressive guest line, our video feed. We should have some music like the Will Hill is with us at Not The Will Hill up on social media. The great Shoulda Bet More podcast as well, wherever you get your podcasts. Will, thank you for joining us. Our facial hair is looking very similar, How you doing, buddy?
It is. I mean, you're still a good minus 180 or so favorite over me, but looking good, feel good. Look good, feel good, play good, I think is the saying.
Well, much like, there's a good balance in any relationship. Your balance is that you can grow a much better beard than I can, but I got some good quaff going on at the top. So it's a good balance between the two of us. All right, let's talk a little football. Let's start with your boys. Really interesting matchup against the Chicago Bears. J.J. McCarthy, I would love to get your thoughts on what you've seen from him. Pretty up and down. A lot of chucking the ball downfield, some YOLO balls that I don't know where they're going. But I actually think they're kind of in a decent spot here against the Bears. What do you say?
I do too, and if you look at the recent schedule, and I think we're up to mostly 3s, even though the 3s are cheap here. You look at the recent schedule: at Chargers, at Lions, Eagles, Ravens. This is a little bit of a spot where they can catch their breath, starting to get a little healthier. defensively, some of the run stoppers. I thought the run defense actually looked pretty good last week against Baltimore. That game was actually 10-3 Minnesota, and they had the ball, and they had a decent drive going, and they started turning it over. They started getting false starts. They fumbled the kickoff, and the game just got away from them. I just think this is a decent spot for them. And if you look at Chicago, they have forced 20 turnovers. They are plus 14 in takeaways. That is unsustainable. And even with all of that turnover luck, needed a comeback win against the Giants. They need all of these miracle comeback wins. Really could have lost, should have lost to maybe the Raiders. I think the Vikings at home, Flores against Caleb Williams is a matchup I like. I think this is a good spot for Minnesota. I'm okay laying the 3 here. I think they win the game by a touchdown or so.
All right, let's go to the NFC South. This one's interesting. We're going to have our market power ratings coming up in about 15 minutes. And one of the discrepancies that really stuck out was the difference between Atlanta and Carolina. And I think you like the Falcons here.
Yeah, I forget. I was doing the Megapod. I think it was either Kelly or Gil was like, if this is not it for the Falcons, this is the last chance. I'm not doing with them anymore. Although you look at the last couple of weeks, they covered against New England, lost by a point on the road. That's forgivable. Lost in overtime on a neutral field to the Colts. Could have won that game. That's forgivable. Covered. I just think they're much better than Carolina here. Look, DVOA, 17th. They're one spot behind the Patriots. Patriots are maybe looking at the 1 seed in the AFC. Falcons are right there, one spot behind them. Carolina's 27th. Revenge spot after losing 30-0. That was a misleading box score. They're a strange team. I don't love the coach. I don't love the quarterback. But I think they're just significantly better than Carolina here. I think they get back on track, and I'm okay. If it lands on 3, I live with it. I don't love laying the hook here, but I think Atlanta wins the game and wins it fairly comfortably.
Yeah, feels like an eternal curse for Atlanta sports where you have to have this really talented and intriguing team that never reaches its capabilities. I think the Hawks are one of those, although the Hawks are playing pretty good basketball right now. And I would generally agree with you. We'll get into the details coming up next, but the number seems kind of short. And with the way that Carolina has played, I can't get that taste out of my mouth from last week. You can stop me right there. All right, let's go to the big one in the afternoon window. The Seattle Seahawks taking on the Los Angeles Rams. MVP candidate Sam Darnold taking on another MVP candidate, Matthew Stafford. What are we doing here with the Seahawks against the Rams?
Yeah, and you were right. Had you on the Should Have Bet More podcast. You can catch that wherever you get your podcast. You said, I'm not betting yet. I might get a 3.5. It's minus 118, but DraftKings is showing a 3.5 right now.
Will, I'll stop you right now real quick. Out here in Vegas,
go ahead.
The South Point doesn't alter the juice. So if you're watching this, you're listening to this, and you're in Vegas, you can go get a 3.5 minus 110 right now here at the tip of the strip.
That's a good number. In a game that's supposed to be close, I like Seattle here, who's got the much better special teams, second in DVOA and special teams. Rams are near the bottom of the league. They've had all sorts of kicker issues with Cardi, who now got demoted. He's 10 of 15 for field goals, missed extra points. So I think Seattle is still underrated. You can't give the Rams much for home field. That's not a great home field advantage. I don't see a 3.5 point gap between these teams. I know you got to give them something for home field, a point, half a point, sure, whatever you want to call it. But I'll take the 3.5, and I'll go a step further. It's a high leverage game. If you do think Seattle's going to win this game, boy, Darnold at 10-1. You've missed the best prices. I know you got 80-1 on MVP. That's a great bet. But just looking at all of the prices right now, if you had to bet something, if you gave me, a free $100 bet on somebody, I actually think Darnold, just because the Rams and the Seahawks are basically a coin flip for who's going to win that division and possibly who gets the 1 seed, Darnold at 10-1. The narrative is there. Former first-round pick, elite prospect turned bust, journeyman. Darnold, to me, 10-1 is live, and I think Seattle is right there in this game. I like them plus the 3.5.
Yep, I would agree with all points. I still, like you mentioned, I even still think at 11-1, which is floated out to that number for Darnold. There's value in that number. It just depends on whether or not. This is kind of an eliminator for him, it would seem. Maybe not so much for Stafford, who's got a little bit more cachet. Will Hill with us. Follow him on X at @NotTheWillHill. Find the Should Have Bet More podcast wherever you get your podcast. Had a great guest yesterday. Really good listen. All right, Raiders and Cowboys. Stormy keeps brushing me off. I keep saying, Cowboys, I don't think they're that good. There was 3.5s out there. I kind of think the Raiders might be live. You're not going specifically in that direction, but if I'm right, Brock Bowers has to have a good game.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the side or the total, but this is one where bet it early. It's a standalone game. It's a primetime game, and he's a marquee player. I believe it's still 70.5 for Brock Bowers, the receiving yard prop. I like this angle. Anytime a star player, and we saw it last week, I think it was a Doomsday, who's not quite a star, but same concept. A star player gets snubbed, doesn't get the ball a lot. It becomes a point of emphasis this week, during the week, especially with extra time off. They haven't played since last Thursday to Monday. That's a lot of time to sit there and stew and mull and say, wait, Brock Bowers had 1 catch and 3 targets for 31 yards after this monster game against the Jags. Let's get him more involved. Let's figure out a way to draw up plays, whether it's screens, whatever the case. And plus, you got a Dallas defense that's very forgiving against the pass. So I think a lot of things add up to a big game for Bowers. Emphasis on getting him the ball, a shaky pass defense, and the fact that it's standalone primetime game. He's a superstar. Boy, props usually don't move more than like 4 or 5 yards, but I think if you get the right number and you bet it and you get the 70.5, wouldn't be shocked if this closes 75.5, 76.5. I think this number only goes up. So I would say bet it early. Even if you don't like it, you bet it early, and I think you can come back on an under and go for a middle.
Plenty of spots still at 70.5 on the screen right now for his receiving yards. So if anybody likes it, you can go and find it wherever. The biggest adjustment has been 71.5 at a few shops. So that is still widely available. All right, let's transition to college because we're going to get to the NBA with you as well. Iowa, USC, we were just talking about this with Mike. Trojans, to me, are one of a couple of teams on the board that are under a touchdown that seem too easy. Am I tripping?
I don't know if you're tripping. I think you're not tripping here. I like USC. I mean, why does this look any different than when they played Michigan or when they play these other, slow plotting teams that lack offense, Northwestern? I know Nebraska was a tight game, but USC does well in these spots when they're home. Yep. The other team has to travel. Lincoln Riley's been good at home. I just think they have too much for Iowa. I know Iowa, maybe you can make the case they're too physical for USC. They can control the ball, control the clock. They do a good job of just taking away the deep ball and making you kind of hit singles and taking away the home runs. That being said, I just think this looks so similar to the Michigan game a month or so ago, where there's just too much offense for USC. And keep this in mind with the props and first team to score first quarter. USC is one of the few teams that usually do take the ball. So USC first quarter, USC to score first. I think we're all good bets, but I think USC wins the game comfortably. I like them to cover.
All right, last 2 minutes, we go to the association. When we were talking last night, you mentioned a pretty fun prop, and I've kind of dabbled in this narrative at the very least. I talked about this on the show the other day where, hey, man, look, this Thunder team, they're really good, and I think I undersold them. It's not like I thought they were going to win like 40 games. It's just I didn't know if they were going to be able to keep this up. They look better than they did last year. What heights do you think they can reach?
At DraftKings, 74+, which would be the record, is 18-1, and DraftKings is offering a boost now on NBA futures. I don't know if it's just I've seen a lot of people post that in their account, so I guess it's a pretty universal thing. You boost it up to like plus 2340 with a boost. To me, they have everything you need. They have the talent. They're young. They're deep. And you and I were talking about this last night. Even guys 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because a lot of people will say, well, what if they rest guys? The second unit is really good, is really young, and they haven't been paid yet. So these guys, A.J. Mitchell and Walsh, these guys aren't going to come off the bench and say, all right, you know what, it's a regular season, who cares? We'll see in May. These guys are hungry. They want the contract, whether it's with OKC or somebody else, because I don't know if long-term they can keep all these guys. I don't know that they get to 74, but at the very least, you're going to get some sweat out of this ticket. This is not going to be a ticket that's dead in a week or two. No. They're injury-proof. They're deep. I think they make a legitimate run at 74+. I think that 18-1 is really way too long. I think they're super live to break the record.
I will add 2 points to your case. First of which is their second best, or maybe third best, depending on how you view Chet Holmgren. Their second best player hasn't even played yet in Jalen Williams.
Yep.
And on top of that, they might need to keep winning, because the Denver Nuggets are really, really freaking good. And I don't know if Denver's going to push for 70, but I think they're getting past 60, and I think that they're going to need every win they possibly can to get a 1 seed in the Western Conference. Will, good to talk to you. Again, Should Have Bet More pod, part of the VSiN family. Check it out wherever you get your podcast. Thanks, dude. We'll talk next week.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Got it. Hey, folks, make sure you check out, we have a great offer for you, 16 free smash burgers at any order of $129 or more. If you're watching up at VSiN.com, check out the QR code. Really quick link. You get 16 free smash burgers with any order of $129 or more. Go to omahasteaks.com/VSiN.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, we got a lot to get to. We don't have a lot of time. I've been pushing behind the scenes. I've said it all the time. I'm like, Stormy, we could do 3 hours. It'd be pretty easy. But no, we can't do that. We got a jet set across the country. For those who are just joining us, it is a Friday. Stormy Buonantony out in Provo to take in the action for BYU. By the way, so a couple of notes here on that game before we get to our market power ratings, because we did get some news involving BYU today. But it does look like, I think we do have a little bit more news on the arrest for BYU here today, but going to be down a starter, so that's going to be something worth mentioning here. And I'm sure Stormy will be all over that, get some new updated info. We won't be able to talk to her today. She'll be on the sidelines out there. And I didn't know, I guess, that there was some sort of hike you can do. I didn't know you can, hike up to the Y or the U or something like that out there in BYU. So hopefully safe travels. And, of course, she'll be back on Monday, and you can check her out in that BYU matchup later this weekend. But we go to the National Football League, where, as usual, here at about this time every single Friday, we have our market power ratings for the week. Interesting week, somewhat quiet week, I think, in terms of not a lot of really big moves or discrepancies that grabbed me. But with some of these big games, some of the injuries, and some of the news, it's very much worth analyzing where we're at with some of our market power ratings. So we can throw them up. Still staying strong as the top-rated team in the National Football League this week, the Kansas City Chiefs. They check in on the 86 line there, just a point ahead of the Eagles and the Rams. And I think that's where I want to start. Not so much the Eagles, but the Rams. The Rams now at the highest point of the market power ratings at any point of this season, and rightfully so. They're coming off of 3 straight victories in which they have ripped off at least 34 points. They have been very, very strong throughout this entire year, outside of a couple of blemishes here and there. But I will continue to I don't want to underrate what the Rams have done, because, again, in any single sport, you deserve credit for doing what you've done. And in totality, by the way, I understand that they have won 4 straight since the loss to the San Francisco 49ers on that tragic Thursday night. But the Jags, the Saints, both at home, on the road against the 49ers team that was really beat up and injured, beleaguered with injuries. It's a good accomplishment for the Los Angeles Rams to do what they've done the last 3 weeks and win 4 straight. Having said that, I do remember them going to take on Cooper Rush and the Baltimore Ravens and really struggling with a team that at that time was sliding without their starting quarterback and having a lot of offensive issues, specifically in the first half, albeit they did win the game. And while you're at the top of the market, with Seattle, who checks in on the 83 line, the Rams are at the top of the market as well, almost quite literally at this point of the season. You see Seattle right there on the 83 line, along with the Colts, the Packers, the Patriots, and the Ravens. This is tied for the highest appearance in the market power ratings for Seattle as well. So they've been climbing up, rightfully so. They've been smoking opponents these last couple of weeks. And you can make the same argument for Seattle. Congrats on doing that against Arizona. Congrats on doing it against Washington, who we will get to in a little bit. But at the same time, this was a team that took on an Arizona group that many thought was really on the upswing, especially with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, really shut down an offense that had been playing much better, absolutely smoked them. And here we get them on the road, where Mike Palm and others have mentioned Seahawks have been very, very good away from home. Obviously one of the best matchups, but again, to get back to the crux of the issue and what we're talking about, I do think the gap between the Rams and the Seahawks is a little bit tighter than the market's saying. I think they're closer to equals to one another than what you see right here, which is about a 2-point difference on a neutral, depending on where you're looking. Who knows? I mean, one shop, as we mentioned out here, is at 3.5, so you could get even farther along. And that's worth noting, too, that in reality, if we're using home field as 1.5 points, there's only about a 1.5 point difference. But for me, a tiebreaker, sitting on a key number, easily on a key number, -110 in some spots, shaded to the favorite side, and in other spots at -3.5, I think it's worth rounding that out to a 2-point difference on a neutral between these two. Let's go to San Francisco and Arizona, and let's hear from Brock Purdy, because we finally got official news yesterday. Purdy is back. Here he is with the media talking about what the frustrating part of this season has been for him.
Frustrating, obviously, going into year 4, I wanted to come in and play my best ball so far in my career, and was really excited about it. We come in, play Seattle, and win on the road, and just feeling really good about the year. And then all of a sudden, I'm just dealing with the toe thing, and it has been frustrating. The time missed, and seeing our team and an opportunity to go and win games, put a season together, man, and feel good about it. So it's just been frustrating for sure. But at the same time, this is just the cards that I've been dealt with, and I'm not trying to be woe is me kind of thing. We still have 7 games here to go and put something together, and our goals are right in front of us. So that's how I'm looking at it. I'm excited about it.
Yep, goals right in front of them, still alive in the division, albeit on the fringes of it. Still alive for a playoff seed, very obviously, right there with the Green Bay Packers. It is interesting to see, I've been asking Stormy this question throughout these weeks when Brock Purdy's been dealing with this issue, which has been, is Brock Purdy an upgrade? And again, was asking it more in the prism of like a half-healthy Brock Purdy if they're trying to rush him back. Market says there is an upgrade. Last week in our market power ratings, we had the 49ers on the 78 line. If you're watching up at VSiN.com, YouTube TV, the VSiN Watch app, by the way, check that out as well. You can see that the 49ers are on the 81 line now, considered equals on a neutral with teams like the Broncos and the Chargers. So very clearly, the 49ers have been upgraded here with the addition of Brock Purdy. And that's going to be something obviously worth monitoring because it is his first game back after a long layoff. You are in the role of road favorite. And you do wonder, after watching an Arizona team steadily climb up the power ratings ever so slightly after 3 straight wins and covers going into that game against the, and not 3 straight wins, 3 straight covers, going into that game against Seattle, then failing the way that they did, is it a little too much to then drop them where they're at, but also expect a quarterback coming off of a long layoff to hit the ground running? Now, be it was against Seattle, but still, even in the games we've seen from him, the first game specifically where he was fully healthy, Purdy didn't really look the best. And so I cannot wait to watch what this game is going to provide and if the 49ers are in a spot where they deserve to be from a power rating standpoint. Let's go to another one. There is some injury news for the Buffalo Bills, and this is a very big game for two teams coming off of very disappointing results. Dalton Kincaid is out. He does have hamstring issues, so he is not going to play here against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bills, of course, market's still somewhat stubborn with them. Not like a big downgrade, but a downgrade nonetheless. For those who don't remember, Bills were actually up there with the Chiefs last week. Now we're putting them here on the 84 line. Again, about a 5.5-point spread across the board for Buffalo in this matchup. That would mean a 4-point difference between these two. And this is where I feel somewhat conflicted. The Buccaneers just a week ago were not this low on the market power ratings. Remember, they were taking on the New England Patriots, about 2.5-point favorites, indicating about a point difference between the two, and a point difference being that the Buccaneers were maybe considered better than the New England Patriots, but not so much the case here. They take this slip, but let's hear from Josh Allen, because all of the pressure, it would seem, is on Buffalo after a really bad loss. What has this week been like? How do you handle it, and how are you feeling? Here was Josh Allen, how he moves on from last week.
Really quickly. Again, it sucks losing, but knowing in the losses this year that we've turned the ball over, and that's pointing the thumb directly at myself, and knowing that if we take care of the football and take care of what we're supposed to, we're a dang good football team, and making sure that we remember that and realize that, and turnovers are part of the game. They're going to happen, but limiting them and doing whatever we can to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to end every drive in a kick. There's another opportunity this week to go out there and make some plays.
Buffalo, the inverse of what we talked about with some of these teams, lower on the expected points added per play allowed to opponents, but higher on success rate. So again, pretty decent down to down, but at times giving up some of those explosives that will allow teams to get into some successful drives there. And as we have seen, we haven't seen the best of Buffalo, or maybe we have. But on the other side, man, I am tempted by this Tampa Bay team, just considering how low the market has become with this Buccaneers squad. Understand everything they've been through, the injuries, maybe everything's starting to catch up with them. But you see them down there just ahead of Minnesota by only 2 points, so far behind some of these other teams like the 49ers, the Broncos, the Chargers, does seem a little low. And the last one here that's worth pointing out, we teased this when we talked to Will Hill, the Falcons who have been ripping off covers, they haven't been winning some of these games, but they've been covering some of these games. Market's been a little too low on them. And now all of a sudden, you see Atlanta just on the 77 line still, considered equals. The Bears, the Cowboys, the Steelers, only 2 points better on a neutral than the Carolina Panthers. If you want to give them a hook because it's, of course, sitting on a key number, that's fine. But still, we're talking about an area here for an Atlanta squad that has very clearly been underrated by the betting market. And yet they're still floating in this range of being a somewhat mediocre team. I'm really tempted to come in here and lay that 3.5 as we get closer to the weekend. I would agree with everything that Will had talked about with this group. And for the Carolina Panthers, don't you deserve some sort of downgrade at this point right now, considering the way that you've played? But either way, Very interested, and we'll have some more plays on that, and we'll get the best bets at the end of the program. Speaking of best bets, should have added some of the AI props that we've talked about over the last couple of days. VSiN Pro subscribers know what I'm talking about, because if you're a Pro subscriber, you have exclusive access to our new AI player prop projections, powered, of course, by Opta AI, trusted data source behind elite soccer analytics in the UK. Data-driven projections in football for quarterbacks, receivers, and running backs, and the NBA player prop projections have been absolutely fantastic. Points, rebounds, assists, and three-point projections all up. And if you're a VSiN Pro subscriber, you get them, so become one. Go to vsin.com/subscribe. Speaking of hoops, when we come back, we'll get into the card. Boy, oh boy, we got a team that comes into tonight that is 1-10 against the spread and has failed to cover 9 straight. We'll tell you who that is and if it's time to pile on in the association.